Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now, till now, we are mostly dealing with some very profound philosophical ideas, discussing the dialogues. And now, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is an interesting dialogue. It is some kind of a family affair. Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi. Yajnavalkya was a well-known saint philosopher of those times. And Maitreyi was one of his two wives. So it begins like this. Maitreyi iti hovaja Yajnavalkya. So Yajnavalkya, addressing Maitreyi, says, Udyasan va are aham asmasthānādasmi khanda te. So this is the beginning of the dialogue between Yajnavalkya and one of his two wives. He had two wives, Maitreyi and Gargi. So, addressing his wife, one day he tells Maitreyi iti hovaja Yajnavalkya Udyasan va are aham asmasthānādasmi handate anaya katyayanyandam karavani iti. It's very interesting, Yajnavalkya has already become a well-known philosopher. He was a great teacher. But he had not become a monk. And in ancient times, there were different traditions in monasticism. Sometimes, like Shankaracharya, for example, in 8th century, he became a monk when he was perhaps 7-year-old or still younger. So one could become a mendicant, take to monastic life when he's very young, or after education you can start your life as a householder, and after getting after being established in the life of an householder, you can become a monk later. Or when you become old, then also you could become a monk. Yet akareva virajit tad akareva pravarjit grihadva vanadva brahmacharyadva is a statement. One could take to monasticism either right from brahmacharya ashramam, grihastha ashramam or vanaprastha ashramam. There is no rule as such. So Yajnavalkya was quite advanced in years and it became a well-known philosopher, a saint. So he said, he thought, well, now he will take to complete contemplative life. He will go to hermitage and spend the rest of his lifetime in meditation and contemplation. So he called his wife Maitreyi, who was a great, was equally great in learning, because you have to remember, in ancient times, even ladies used to go for Vedic education. Pura kalpeshu narinam maunji vandhanam ishyate adhyapanam cha vedanam. It is very common. It is surprising, when you think of the ancient Vedic times, ancient Vedic civilization. When you compare that Vedic civilization to our own times, sometimes we feel we have moved backward in the evolution of culture and civilization. So it's very common in those days, even for ladies to become learned in Vedic studies, teaching and so on. Now, what is the answer? How does Maitreyi respond to this statement coming from her husband? This is most remarkable. That's the beginning. That's a very interesting part of this dialogue. Sahovaja Maitreyi. So Maitreyi answered, Yennu ma yam bhagohu sarva prithvi vitena purna syat katham tena amrudasyam iti. This is her question. What's the question? Now, sir, if the entire earth filled with riches, gold, treasure, and if it becomes mine, if I inherit the whole world filled with riches, with treasure, do you think I am going to become immortal? Do you think I am going to get the highest spiritual wisdom by inheriting this wealth? Now, there is a reason why she put this question. Yajnavalkya was not a very rich man, but still he had his own modest wealth, modest inheritance. So, he declares his intention to divide his wealth between his two wives, Maitreyi and Katyayani, the names of his two wives. That's why Maitreyi asked this question. Oh, you are announcing your plan to become a mendicant, a monk, after distributing your wealth between two of us. But am I going to become immortal? Am I going to get the highest spiritual wisdom by inheriting your legacy? So Yajnavalkya answers, Naiti hovacha Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya said, no, you are not going to get anything in terms of spiritual attainment by inheriting this wealth. Yathaiva upaharanavatam jivitam tathaiva te jivitam syat amrudattusya tu na ashasti vittena iti. Yajnavalkya said, no. As you find people with plenty of riches, with some inheritance, like that you also will have some property. That's all. You are not going to be any different from others who have inherited some property. The same life as others are leading, you will be leading. Because wealth cannot give you immortality. Na ashasti vittena. Money or wealth cannot bring you immortality. This is the answer the Yajnavalkya gives. Sahovacha Maitreyi yenakam na amrudasyam kimakam tena viryam yadeva bhagavan veda tadeva me bruhi iti. So she asks for another inheritance, not wealth or treasure. She is asking for the highest spiritual instruction from her husband. Sahovacha Maitreyena aham na mudasyam. Now, what shall I do with that by means of which I am not going to become immortal? What use it is to me? In what way am I going to be benefited by the wealth that you are planning to give to me, if that's not going to make me spiritually wiser? So, you give me that instruction about that which is going to make me spiritually enlightened. Now, what is the meaning of teaching you immortality? So, if you get any wisdom, any learning that teaches you about things belonging to this world, higher skills, higher technology, anything that may make our physical life more comfortable, empirical life more comfortable. That won't make any change with our basic personality. So you teach me that, which is not related to learning about this world, learning about making life in this world more comfortable, more enjoyable. But rather, it teaches me that which will make me understand that I am immortal. So Maitreyi knew a lot about the spiritual instruction that is needed for our spiritual enlightenment. Because our true nature is that we are the Atman, we are the immortal spiritual reality. And all that is mortal, that is subject to changes, that belongs to this world, empirical things, are only going to make us live better life at a physical level. And this physical level is an impermanent state. So, please teach me that by which I understand that I am the immortal Atman, the imperishable spiritual reality. This is how the dialogue opens. That's not the most important part of this dialogue, but I was just giving a prelude. In answer to this, Yajnavalkya says, what you are speaking now is very dear to me, it's something very precious. Yajnavalkya was overjoyed when he found that his wife was so advanced in her own spiritual pursuit that she completely rejected his promise, his offer of material comforts or her inheritance, material inheritance. Rather, she wanted him to teach her the highest spiritual truth that would make her spiritually enlightened. Now, one very important aspect of this dialogue comes next in the next mantra. That's very famous in the Vedantic tradition. Sahovaja nava are pati kamaya pati priyo bhavati atmastu kamaya pati priyo bhavati nava are jayai kamaya jaya priya bhavati atmanastu kamaya jaya priya bhavati nava are putrana kamaya putra priya bhavanti atmanastu kamaya putra priya bhavanti. Like that it continues. The essential meaning is this. When you read the literal translation, we may not fully get the implication. The translation could be something like this, if I literally translate. The literal meaning is this: it is not for the sake of husband that a wife considers her husband dear. It is not for his sake that she is loving her husband. It is for the sake of self. Self, not small letter S, but capital letter S. It is for the sake of self, Atman, that he is dear to his wife. Nava are patyu kamaya padipriyo bhavati atmanastu kamaya padipriyo bhavati. So that means a wife is not loving her husband not for his sake but for her sake. Her sake means for the sake of self. It is not for the sake of the wife that she is dear to the husband, but for the sake of the self that she is dear. It is not for the sake of the sons that they are dear to the father, but for the sake of self. Now, before proceeding further, I shall explain the psychological aspect of this. Incidentally, I had an interesting discussion with a professional medical practitioner during one of our own Sunday lectures in San Francisco. Now, why does, for example, a mother love her child? Or why does a son love his father, or the father loves his son or daughter? The mother derives a kind of inner joy by showing her affections on the child. By doing that, she derives a kind of inner joy. It is, of course, if she wants that her child should become a wonderful person, a great person, may be true. But she wants that because when the child grows up and becomes a very wonderful person, that experience gives her some kind of joy. That is, Similarly, the husband loves his wife, or the wife loves her husband, and so on. In all human relations, even the ordinary human relations. By showing, I'm giving the example of the most intimate and most natural of human relations, within the affection, the love between mother and children. It's supposed to be the most natural, spontaneous, and apparently as unselfish, as free from selfishness as it is humanly possible, conceivable. The mother loves her children because by loving her children, she gets something back in return. Because by pouring her affection on the children, she derives a kind of inner joy, inner fulfillment, inner satisfaction. It may not be selfish, true, but then by doing that, she gets a kind of inner satisfaction. In fact, all human actions are aimed at getting some kind of joy or satisfaction. In Sanskrit, we call it sukham. It has got a very earthly, empirical sense, and it also has got a higher spiritual implication. True. But the basic point is, every human endeavor, every human pursuit, every human activity gives you something in return. And what is that precious thing that you get back in return for every endeavor? It can be some kind of inner fulfillment. For example, may I give one example, you should not mind. Why do devotees come to Vedanta Society? You find them driving long distances. You can see professionals, high-placed professionals, cooking, dishwashing, scrubbing, cleaning the floor. Why do they do that? They don't get anything apparently. Either they are absolute fools, or they get back something very precious. What is that? By doing that kind of unselfish, totally disinterested service, they get back something in return. That's an incentive. That incentive is not a material incentive, not in the form of money or prestige or any kind of thing. But they get a kind of inner fulfillment. Even if you help a blind man to cross the street, without, of course, being noticed by a philanthropist or the photographer of the newspaper, nobody knows about. Nobody may know that you have helped a person to cross the street. But if you go to your home, you are able to sleep better. Why do captains of industry who may have accumulated their wealth, perhaps through questionable means, up for so many decades, finally, without giving much publicity or advertisement, help philanthropical activities like fighting Ebola or fighting AIDS or helping in the backward nations in sub-Saharan countries, fighting epidemics, helping poor people suffering from floods and devastations in Philippines. There are so many. Because by writing out a check that may help some poor affected people in far off countries, total strangers to us, we are deriving something that we cannot buy from Trader Joe's. That's a kind of inner fulfillment, inner joy. The same philosophy operates behind these strange things. People doing great service for great spiritual causes, great endeavors. By doing that, they get something in return, a kind of inner fulfillment, inner joy, inner satisfaction. Well, I have done something which I should have done. So that's something very precious. In fact, that experience can bring down the stress, it can bring down the BP, all those things people do. So what does it mean? It means, essentially, every form of, every manifestation of love, affection, or all these, in a way, is meant to manifest the Atmanhood, the spiritual dimension of our personality. That's how Yajnavalkya explains an interesting phenomenon in this dialogue. That's why he says, Nava are sarvasya kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Meaning is, it is for the sake of Atman, it is for the sake of the inner spiritual fulfillment that we are all doing great things. Because by doing that, we get a kind of inner fulfillment. Not only action, but even a noble idea or a flash of thought in our mind creates a wave, yesterday as I mentioned. In material life, action alone can produce a result. But in spiritual life, even a flash of good thought, noble thought, spiritually enriching, spiritually ennobling idea itself can bring about a change in our inner spiritual life, because it creates a wave, it creates a vritti, as it is called in Sanskrit. Yesterday I mentioned, karma, vritti, samskara, vasana, sankalpa, again leads to karma, vritti, samskara, like that. There is it's called karma, vritti, chakram. Every action produces a residual element which is invisible. Every action produces one visible, explicit manifestation and another implicit, abstract manifestation. When you do a noble deed, somebody may get the benefit out of it, or you may get the benefit, which is the visible result. But there is an invisible result. That noble action produces a tendency, an impression, a samskara in our inner system. And then that will not go away very soon. It becomes a culture, a samskara. It forms the character, because our whole human character consists of these accumulated samskaras, vrittis and vasanas. So, Yajnavalkya says, Atma va are drashtavyaha, shodavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasidavyaha, maitreyi, Atmano va are darshanena, sravanena, matya vijnanena, idam sarvam vididam. So, Yajnavalkya says, therefore, whatever you do, whatever you think or speak or any kind of activity, not only physical activity but mental activity in the form of thoughts or ideas, all should be given a spiritual orientation. All our natural spontaneous actions, even involuntary actions and thoughts, can be given a spiritual orientation. And this is possible when we keep in our mind that our true nature is something that goes beyond this physical body dimension, that we are essentially the Atman, and the physical personality and the intellectual personality are only the outer coverings, and this Atman is immanent in all beings, it is omnipresent, it is all-pervading, it is the ultimate transcendental reality. That's why Yajnavalkya says, this Atman is to be realized, it is to be contemplated upon, it is to be realized, and before that we must first hear about it. Drashtabhyeha, Srodabhyeha, Mantavyeha, Nididhyasvyeha. We must somehow feed our mental system with positive spiritual ideas. It could be done by listening to those ideas. Listening is not enough, but listening is certainly one way of giving a spiritual orientation to our natural thought process. Hearing and even contemplating on this spiritual dimension of our personality will try to help us to establish a connecting bridge between our everyday activities, the so-called secular part of our life, and our spiritual life. As I mentioned yesterday, the most serious problem in spiritual life and the real cause of all conflicts is that we often try to put spiritual life and secular life into watertight compartments. Once we try to establish a bridge, it will gradually help us to spiritualize the secular, so that the line of demarcation between the secular and spiritual vanishes. Our whole life becomes a spiritual activity. So that is an interesting part of this dialogue. And based on this dialogue, Yajnavalkya, in fact, towards the end of this section, Yajnavalkya speaks about the highest spiritual realization, yatra hi dvaidam iva bhavati tad idara jigrati, etc. Meaning he says, when there is no duality, then we realize the highest truth. But there is duality, then we always demarcate, we'll draw a line of demarcation between the secular and spiritual. Now, how do we evolve to this state of spiritual growth? This idea is, in fact, this subject is discussed in a very elaborate way in another classic, which is not part of the Vedic literature. It is called Bhagavata Purana. Bhagavata Purana in popular culture has got the same status as the Vedas. It is called Brahma Samhitam. It is supposed to be as sacred as Vedas themselves. Bhagavata Purana is the most important devotional classic of Vedantic tradition. There is an interesting dialogue. These dialogues are spread out in many of the most important spiritual literature of Vedantic heritage. And Bhagavata Purana is so remarkable and so well known for the wonderful dialogues that it contains. One of the most profound dialogues in the Vedantic dialogues is contained in the Bhagavata Purana. And those of you who are interested can see this 11th skandha. It is called, skandha means book number 11. It deals with the dialogue between a king and 9 sages. Nimi Navayogi Sambadha. That is the title. Nimi is the name of a king. In fact, incidentally, he was also an emperor, the king of the same kingdom. So in that book also you find Videka Vacha. Videka is the name of a nation, of a country, an ancient kingdom, and it's also the name of a king. Frequently the name of the kingdom was used to call the king also. So they were mostly synonymous, identical in ancient times. So it is very similar, but these dialogues are very profound. In fact, in the Bhagavata Purana also you find Janaka Uvacha. So Janaka seems to have been the name of the kings belonging to one particular dynasty who ruled the Mithila country for long ages, for long centuries. So Kavir Harir Andariksha Prabhuddha Pipalayana Avi Hotroda Samasak Karabhajana. So 9 sages, these are the words, Kavi, Hari, Andariksha, Prabhuddha, Pipalayana, Avir Hotra, Durmila, Chamasa, Karabhajana. These are 9 sages. We are not going to discuss the whole dialogue between the king and the 9 sages. When they visited the king in his court, like Yajnavalkya visited Janaka in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the king asked them 9 questions, one question to each of them. So, and each of them answers the question. So, there are 9 important expositions of spiritual topics. 9 subjects are discussed by each of these 9 sages. In the dialogue, the third sage is Kabir, Khabir, Antariksha. Antariksha is the name of the third sage. So he answers a question put to him by the king. The question is, what are the external characteristics? What are the signs of a truly enlightened spiritual person? Who is the most advanced, the genuine devotee of God? In a general way, we can say, what is the special quality of a spiritually advanced soul? This is a question that the king puts to a sage called Andariksha. So in answer to this, the sage gives the characteristics of 3 types of spiritual seekers or devotees. In a descending order, he gives a graphic description of 3 levels of spiritual evolution. The highest devotee, and those who are not so highly advanced, and also those who are just beginners. Now, who is the best and highest devotee? Sarva bhudeshu yapasyeed bhagavad bhavam atmanaha bhudani bhagavadi atmani esa bhagavadottama. So, bhagavadottama means bhagavatanam uttama. Bhagavata means a true spiritual seeker who devoted his whole life, his activities, thoughts, everything to God. Let us say in a general way, the highest devotee of God. What are his special characteristics, his unique features of his character? Sarva bhudeshu yapasyeed bhagavad bhavam atmanaha bhudani bhagavadi atmani esha bhagavadottamaha. The highest devotee is one who sees God in everyone, in everything, and who sees everyone in God. In a way, it is a kind of devotional Advaitic philosophy, where you have gone beyond the ritualistic, the ceremonial practices of religion and the external forms of morality, where God has become an experience, not just a concept or an idea, where you feel the presence of God in everything, and not in human beings only, but also in the whole creation. And you feel the presence of the whole creation in God. That devotee is the highest one. who sees God in everything and who sees everyone and everybody in God, so that he experiences a kind of spiritual unity and oneness of existence. Such a devotee's words will be sacred, like sacred mantras. His actions will be like worship of God, and his thoughts will be like meditation. So every action, every word, every moment becomes a spiritual experience for such a devotee. You may call it, maybe in modern language, you can say the highest mystical experience, where you go beyond the external rituals, faith systems, diversities of dogmas and doctrines. Going beyond all this, God becomes an experience, and that state of experience can never be really explained or described. It can only be experienced, because experience really cannot be explained. Experience can only be experienced. Sri Ramakrishna is saying in a simple language, that the sweetness of sugar, you cannot write a volume, you won't make anyone understand. Or like if you have got a weather broadcast, a huge volume which tells you about the possibility of rains, but if you squeeze it, you won't get one drop of water, because the book is different from a drop of real rain, like that. Now, this is the highest state. You may call it a mystical experience, or you may call it a realization of God, or Jiva Brahmaikyam, depending upon the tradition, the approach you have got. But it's a very remote, distant goal, but it is not unreachable, but it is the highest goal that we should aim at. At least if we can keep in mind that this is the highest goal, this is a real goal of all religious practices, then at least that intellectual conviction will help us from stooping to fanaticism, narrow-mindedness, or any such or the wrong things that are going on in the name of religion and God. The next verse is a description of those who have not reached this state of the highest experience. What about those who are still in the process of evolving gradually? So there Antariksha says, those who have not reached that state can practice an intermediate path. Ishare tad adhineshu balisheshu dishutsucha prema maitri kripa ubeksha yakkaro disa prakritaka. Prakritasa udakritaka. This is another version of reading. So when you work in your office place or when you move out in society, you may not always be living in the company of spiritual seekers. Sometimes you may have to confront people who are highly skeptical, whose association may even make you skeptical. They can cast doubts in our conviction. There are so many people who tell you, oh, what is spirituality is all absolute nonsense, meaningless. If you go on associating people with such negative ideas, gradually you may also be affected by that. It's possible, but it could always happen, because you have not reached the highest goal. You are still in the process of evolving. So Antariksha says, the sage says, you have to be very careful. So you should have devotion to God, and you should try to keep the company of other spiritual seekers whose association will help you in your conviction. And also, you should try to teach or instruct those who are interested in these things but who are totally ignorant of all this, who have got a lot of curiosity, interest in knowing spiritual topics. You can discuss with them. We can teach them, instruct them. But there are those, the fourth category, there's the skeptics, as I mentioned, Their association will make us skeptical. In the beginning, we may dismiss their views as totally irrelevant. But gradually, we may start sharing their skepticism, their doubts. So slowly, our mind also may get clouded, polluted, tilting towards doubts and skepticism and pessimism. So we should keep a long distance from them. These are the four approaches that the sage recommends. Yishwarita adhineshu bhariseshu disasisha. Prema means highest devotion to God. Maitri means friendship. You should be friendly with fellow spiritual seekers like us. And at the same time, we should try to help those who are interested in spiritual life but don't know much about it, who are curious to know. But when we deal with skeptics, we must keep a long distance. Upeksha, prema, maitri, kripa, upeksha. Upeksha means total indifference, keeping a long distance from the skeptics and doubters. So this is the path recommended for those who are still in the process of evolving, striving in the spiritual life. Then the third category, they belong to the most primitive stage of spiritual evolution. Many of the fanatics belong to this category. I'm talking about fanatics who are not violent, fanatical dogmatics. The people, sometimes we all believe that God lives in a temple. So if you go to that temple and do some ceremonies, rituals, God will be very happy. If you don't do that, He will be unhappy. So we start believing God lives in a place and is a conditioned being. He will be happy if you follow certain instructions. He will be unhappy if you don't follow those instructions. So archayam eva khare pujam cha saddhi nahi puchadhi khadi najat bhakteshu cha anyeshu yat karodi sa prakritah. Archayam eva khare pujam cha saddhi khadi najat bhakteshu cha anyeshu yat karodi sa prakritah. They worship God with all external rituals with great apparent concentration and dedication. But then when they come out of the temple of the church, they become totally different. Because they think spiritual life is something confined to a few hours in the morning or in the evening. And secular life is totally different. So the idea of the separation of church and state was a great ideal because it was formulated to prevent the interference of the church in state affairs, mostly in Europe. But it has got this problem, And so, unless we extend the meaning of religion beyond the external rituals and ceremonies towards the higher level of spiritual experience, it means the feeling of the presence of God everywhere is the ultimate goal of all religions. Then only religion becomes spiritual. Otherwise, it begins with ceremonies and it ends with ceremonies. So the sage says, ceremonies are all right, rituals are all right. So at the beginning of spiritual life, to divert our attention from everyday activities, we need to focus on some external practices. It's a beginning. Just as a child has to work hard to master the alphabet, learning the alphabet, the basic lessons, learn language, learning, or mathematics. But we should not stop our education at the kindergarten level. We should go beyond that. So all ceremonies, all rituals, all external practices may be necessary. They are necessary, no doubt, but they only constitute the beginning the primary lesson, so the kindergarten of spiritual life. The highest experience, the highest goal of spiritual life or religious life is to get the experience, the presence of God everywhere. That's what the sage says. So you can see another sublime dialogue where, not from a philosophical angle, from a devotional angle, the same idea of unity and oneness of existence, the spiritual unity and oneness of existence is emphasized here. So there are several dialogues. Another very important dialogue is found in the Mundaka Upanishad, which again a dialogue between a rich philanthropist and a sage. So the rich philanthropist is called a Mahashala, means because he used to run big inns, philanthropic institutions in ancient times. So one day, that philanthropist, he comes to Angira, a great sage. In the Mundaka Upanishad you find this. So he asked the question, Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāde sarvamidam vijñādam bhavati. This is the meaning here. This question he asked. What is that learning by knowing which everything else becomes known? In old language, what is that highest wisdom which makes us knowledgeable about everything? So in answer to this question, Angira, the great sage, gives a long exposition of the highest Vedanta philosophy, and he begins by explaining that all learning, all branches of learning belong to secondary level of knowledge. Secondary level. The highest learning is something that goes beyond books, any kind of books. The highest learning is called Paravidya. The supreme learning, the supreme knowledge. The supreme knowledge is experience. All other types of learning, it's called Aparavidya, means secondary knowledge, is only a prelude, a preparation that leads us to this highest learning. It's called Paravidya. So, Paravidya and Aparavidya. Paravidya means the supreme knowledge. It is nothing but inner experience. All other learnings are necessary. We should not discount, we should not disregard scriptures. Scriptures are important because the great scriptures make our mind ready to understand highest learning. And it creates good positive samskaras, vrittis and vasanas, which are essential for attaining mental purity, which again is essential for the highest spiritual experience. But the point is, the real knowledge is something that is transcendental, that goes beyond the words and phrases contained in the books. That's an inner experience. So, the entire Upanishadic literature is full of dialogues like this. Not only the Upanishads, the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is, it is a very huge work. It has got two versions. The largest version apparently contains 145,000 verses, and the smallest version more than 100,000 verses, which according to it is 13 times the combined size of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, the most ancient Greek classics. It's another interesting dialogue, which I get taken from real life. I can quote that also. It is sometimes found not only in Mahabharata but in some other Upanishads, Puranas also. It is called Brahmachari Pativrata Samvada. With dialogue between a chaste housewife and a mendicant. Here the student is the mendicant and the teacher is a housewife. So, everything is turned upside down, the opposite of what you find in Upanishads. But the same higher spiritual philosophy is discussed here. The story goes like this. A young man, he left his home, went to a forest, became an ascetic, a mendicant, sat under a tree for many months or many years, and he became an ascetic. He had some occult powers, so to speak. This is a result of exercise of mind control or focus, concentration of mind. But he was not a spiritually enlightened person. Buddha also sat on a tree, but he became the great Buddha, the compassionate one. So Buddha, as I mentioned this morning, Buddha, as a young man of 28 years, was born and brought up in a palace, had not seen the miseries of life in this world. One day happened to see a dead man, a sick man, old man. So the realities of old age, death and sickness shocked him, and that turned him inward. And that night he left his palace, walked 1200 miles, reached Bodh Gaya in today's Bihar state, and sat under a tree. And according to the great Buddhist classic, Lelida Vistara, Ihasane Sushudume Shariram, Tugasti Mamsam Chavilayam Chayatuhu, Aprapya Siddhim Bhujan Madurlabham Naivasanat Kayamatas Chalishade. This is a verse from the Lelida Vistara, which gives a description of how Buddha took a strong vow. When he sat under a tree, he told himself, took a vow, let my body perish and be reduced into ash, into bones and marrow. Let my body perish. Still, I shall not get up from the seat till I reach the highest spiritual wisdom. Let my body be reduced to bones and marrow. Still, I won't stop my endeavor, spiritual endeavor, till I reach my goal. And he became the great Buddha. But this is another example. Not the same type of example, the opposite example. So this mendicant in our story, the ascetic, he practiced some meditation, and he became very haughty and proud and very, very, very congratulating himself on his own attainment, what he imagined to be his attainment. So one day he found there was a disturbance on the branches of the tree under which he was sitting, and he looked about, and he found two birds were fighting, making a lot of noise, disturbing his meditation. He got angry and he looked at them, and the two birds burned into ashes. So he congratulated himself, very wonderful. And he got up from his seat and he walked. Just as in the medieval times, the Franciscan friars used to shout when they reached their homes, alms for St. Francis. Like that, in ancient times, during the Mahabharata times, mendicants used to shout when they reached the gates of an householder, Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi, give me alms. So he went to a house, stood in front of the gate and shouted, Bhavati Bhiksham Dehi, give me alms. And he waited for some time, and after a few minutes, a voice from the kitchen told him, please wait, sir. And he got angry. How dare you ask me to wait? And the moment this thought flashed his mind, that lady, the feminine voice from the kitchen, shouted back, don't get angry, sir. There are no birds here for you to turn to ashes. He had got several miles from that tree, and there was no communication line in those days. You had to think of the story taking place maybe around 4,000 or 5,000 BC or 4,000 BC. So he was surprised. This lady, how did this lady know about what I did to those birds. That gave him a wake-up call, that opened his eyes. Because he was a spiritual seeker, but not very much advanced, maybe misguided spiritual seeker. Still he was a spiritual seeker. So if you are a spiritual seeker, you may be able to throw the flashlight into your own dark chambers of the mind. And if somebody corrects you, you'll be corrected. So he was wise enough to realize his own mistake. He had become arrogant, and this lady has understood what he did to those innocent birds. He became very humble. And he waited. Then the lady came out and gave him alms. Then in all humility, this ascetic asked her, "Who is your teacher? Who taught you? Who is your teacher?" And the lady in all humility told him, "Look here, my teacher is far away. He's staying in a marketplace, a few miles away from here." And she gave him direction how to reach that place. And perhaps he thought he was going to meet a great sage with long beard and matted hair. He reached the place expecting a great sage, maybe sitting in meditation, and he found a butcher in the marketplace. His name was Vyadha. And he was cutting meat and distributing, satisfying his customers. So when he slowly walked in, reached there, the Vyadha, the trader, the one who the person to whom the lady had directed him, told him, "Oh, you are sent by the lady. Okay, you sit here for some time till I finish my business. I have to satisfy these customers." There was a queue waiting for meat. And he waited for some time. He sent away his customers, and then he expounds one of the highest philosophical thought system in the Mahabharata. It's called Vyadha Gita, means a philosophical poem sung by Vyadha. Who was Vyadha? Vyadha was a trader, trading meat. The whole point is, a spiritually enlightened person can think of the highest spiritual truth even in a marketplace. And if we are not ready for it, even if we sit in a hermitage, we will be thinking of not spirituality, but its opposite. So, the whole ancient spiritual literature is full of Vedantic dialogues. Not only the Vedic literature, but also the devotional classics like Bhagavata Purana, and in a semi-mythological literary classic like Mahabharata. Mahabharata is full of dialogues, maybe hundreds of dialogues, involving kings, emperors, sages, saints, and so on. There are dialogues involving great women characters like Kunti, Draupadi. There are dialogues involving great sages like Markandeya, and great sages and saints you can find. So I have given a very brief idea of the tradition of Vedantic dialogues in ancient India. So thank you. Now we will have interaction maybe for half an hour. Thank you. Yeah. Please. No, it's not working. I think it's
intermittent.
Oh, okay.
Contact.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The other day, Swamiji, I had cramp with my leg. And I called my wife, and she ran and brought some water and tonic water and started giving me massage. The other day, doctor prescribed a medicine. I called my son, and he said, "All right, I will go to pharmacy and bring you medicine." And he brought medicine immediately. I wanted that. Did they do it so that they would get joy? Was that the purpose? I dispute that. They did it to satisfy my need. And joy which came to them is just an outcome which just came. So I dispute this Atmanastu Kamaya. I am doing everything, people do everything just to get them something.
Yeah.
Selfish motive is not there at all, I think. What do you think about it? Thank you.
Yes, maybe in your case it could be true, because I'm not familiar with your family and members. But what I would say, in professions where you are paid, you're paid for what you do, this spiritual element may not be so much involved. But in genuine human relations, which goes beyond the compulsions of duty consciousness, obligations and duties, there is a spiritual element involved. But in modern times, even human relations degenerate into empirical civic duty consciousness. It may help you to get out of the health problem, of course, but in all genuine expressions of love, affection, wherever the human element is involved, there is that feeling. If a person gets misery out of helping you, he won't help you. If a person feels, well, I have done, if he has not done it, later on he may feel, well, I did not do what I should have done. So that pricking of consciousness may be hurting him. So to avoid that, he may be doing something out of which he may get the feeling, well, I have done what I should have done. This is the barest, the grossest manifestation of that. But I was talking about the higher human relations, where love, compassion, joy in its most sublime form is involved. I was talking about. And I would say, I had occasions to observe the devotees coming to Vedanta Society. I have found here also in India, I found many of them going through enormous troubles and difficulties which they won't talk about much. So often we ask the question, why do they do that? Well, it may be that I should do that because Swami told me. True, that aspect may be there, but not in all cases. There are very many cases where they do it because after doing that, they feel a kind of inner contentment. For that they are doing it. So in your case, because it is a very intimate family thing, so perhaps I may not be competent to pass a judgment. But I'm just talking about the general expressions of feeling, contentment, dutifulness, love to do things out of which they get nothing, because they are not duty bound to do that. There is no duty bound obligation to do that. Still they do that, and very often we don't know that they are doing it. We found that. By doing that, perhaps they may be getting a kind of inner joy. That's the idea behind. Yeah. Please. You, somebody? Please.
This is regarding morning's presentation about self-effort and God's grace, which you explained beautifully. They are kind of complementary. You need to do picking of stones and weeds so that rain can come and nourish the field. In Gospel, Ramakrishna talks about surrender of different nature. Given the mother cat puts it anywhere on the earth, and he just views and puts it there. So total self-surrender versus a monkey has to steadfastly on the mother's back. Responsibility goes on the baby.
Yeah.
And Yoga Sutra talks about Ishwar
Yeah,
Pranidhana.
yeah.
So one of my doubts sometimes comes a question about in Pranidhana, I believe it's a combination of personal effort and God's grace,
Yeah.
renunciation and surrender.
Yeah.
So can you comment on that?
Yeah, yes. This subject was put before Holy Mother, and she gives a very interesting, in fact, her reminiscences contain these ideas. In one context, Mother says, well, look at me, and even now I am doing tens of thousands of times japa every day. Get up in the morning. Yeah, Mother gives her own example, and she used to do so much of japa, so much of spiritual sadhanas, and all that. And then he tells that you should give up your laziness. You should be very diligent. You should be very punctual. You should do minimum so many thousands of japa every day. In one context. In another context, Mother says, that's very interesting. Do you think a devotee complained to Mother, I have done so much of japa, but still I am not getting much result. So maybe depending upon the adhigaris, the type of devotees who approach Mother, Mother says, oh, you think you are doing so much of spiritual practices. Do you think God should appear before you? Is God like fish or vegetable that you go to the market and buy like that? So, in one context, when a devotee talked to Mother about this complete prapatti, saranagati, leaving everything to God, then Mother said you should make your own effort. So, it depends upon the type of adhigaris, our own nature. The higher spiritual instructions are basically individual oriented, individual specific, depending upon our own, where we stand. And if we are sincere spiritual seekers, when we read them, we will know what's the right message for us. So that's an interesting, yes.
Subjective.
Exactly. So, yeah. There are people who are lazy. I have Giri Chandra Ghosh handed over the whole power of attorney to Sri Ramakrishna. I also done it fine. So what? But then Giri Chandra Ghosh did that with full awareness, and though he did not understand its true meaning, he was so sincere when he did that. Yeah, it's like falling from the 6-story building without any support. That kind of complete surrender he had. But very frequently, when we say, well, I believe in God, often all that we mean, I want to believe in God. For example, when I say it is 4:42 right now, it's perfectly all right. Very factual, we have no doubt about it. When we say I believe in God, do we have the same level of faith as when we make the statement it is 4:45 now? We have no doubt about it. Are we as serious when we make a statement, I believe in God, I have given everything over to Sri Ramakrishna? When we say that, we only mean we want to do that. Very frequently in spiritual life, well, I have handed over everything to God. It only means I would like to hand over everything to God. So there is a qualitative difference between the conviction level or even the faith level. So that's an interesting point to remember. So Holy Mother must have understood when the devotee told her, oh God, Mother, you are doing everything, so I don't have to do anything. Mother must have noticed this fellow is very lazy or like that. So Mother wanted him to struggle hard. Because Mother could understand the type of devotee the person is. On the other hand, there must be some devotee very proud. Every day I do 10,000 times and things like that, very proud. So I'm getting nothing. So there you bargain. See, I have given $10, so I need this particular thing from Trader Joe's. That kind of business. So Mother says, is God something like a vegetable or fish that you buy from the market, that you given money. So it depends upon the type of adhikaris. It is an individual specific topic, actually speaking.
It's very subjective.
But in a general way, we can say that in spiritual life there is a harmonious, a conflict-free blending and harmony of human effort. It's called Purusha Prayatna and God's grace. That's true in a general way. That's all we can say. Another point, of course, I want to drive home. Another point. When we make a sincere effort, then we will understand the true implication of God's grace. Depends upon the sincerity of our effort. That will help us to understand the true implication and relevance of God's grace.
Referring to the first question, for the spiritual seekers, the statement that duty for the duty's sake and not expecting the results. So this is another aspect of that, right? Because in the present society, with
if you don't mind my correcting you, by the way, duty for duty's sake is Kantian philosophy, the critical practical reason. That's this Kantian moral order. That is not what we mean here. Duty not for its own sake. Duty not as duty as an act of worship. So it goes beyond duty for duty's sake. In fact, Vivekananda, in one of his Karma Yoga lectures, he comes heavily upon this duty for duty's sake idea. It is certainly fine, all right, but that was as far as Kant could go, Immanuel Kant. But in Indian spiritual tradition, duty ceases to be duty, work ceases to be work, work becomes worship. So that's, from a spiritual perspective, duty is not duty, duty is worship. That's an idea. Please continue.
So basically, those who are on the spiritual path and who wants to progress on that. So this is what was the point basically I was trying to get in, that service-oriented work, not expecting the results, etc.
Yeah.
So that probably is the correction with that statement.
Yeah. You know what happens when we do that? We are actually generating a new spiritual treasure, wealth, which actually helps us in our evolution, but we are not aware of it. It's something, that's why the impact of actions on the human mind is not very closely studied, scrutinized by modern psychologists. The impact of mind on action is very obvious to us. So very often, if we go on doing good things, even without being aware of the fact that good actions produce good mental vibrations, even if we are not aware of it, so mind starts evolving. But to give one single example, I can say. Suppose you go to a library and you take up a very wonderful, uplifting book from the bookshelf and spend 1 hour in reading that book. And you come out of the library. Now, there will be some difference in your mental makeup before and after. 1 hour of even superficial acquaintance with some great ideas will have some impact on your thought system, thought patterns. It may not last for long, but it will be there, it may resurface again. When you go to another library after 1 year, you come across a book, not the same book, but different kind of book, same category. These, what you have accumulated the previous year will help you to come up with those ideas better. So that shows even an external action will have some impact on the mental system. But we don't really take notice of this. But in spiritual life, it is very significant. In spiritual psychology, it is very significant. Very often, we sit somewhere here and we try to create a GPS system for our spiritual life without realizing that our mind will function differently after we take the first few steps in spiritual life. Those first few steps need not necessarily be meditation. It may be that you are reading some wonderful books, you are listening to wonderful ideas, discussing wonderful ideas. And these things will have an effect and impact on the mind. So, the problems that we imagine that we have to face after 2 years, we won't face. We have different kinds of problems. So, when you take step 1 and you think of what will be the nature of 10th step, you are wrong. You have to reach the 9th step to understand what will be the nature of 10th step. In spiritual life. In GPS system you can mechanically, in computer you can prepare it. But in real life, when we deal with our emotional, mental life, that principle doesn't operate. That's why Sri Ramakrishna, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he doesn't often instruct people to meditate, go and meditate, very rarely. You know what he mostly says? Go and pray. Because prayer has got the effect of helping you to begin your spiritual journey right now and today. It opens the mind straight away. If you try to meditate, often of course, what we call meditation today is only relaxation technique. At least it will be wonderful, no doubt. Be helpful. We should not discourage any of such practices. And in the Vedantic tradition, we should not reject or discourage. But what I mean to say, in real spiritual, earnest spiritual life, it is prayer that's the beginning of spiritual life, not meditation. That's the reality. Okay. Let us turn to them now. Let us now pay attention to them. Fine. Yeah. Please.
Swamiji, thank you so much for your wonderful lectures. Really enjoyed it. I have two questions. The role of Vedanta in our day-to-day life. You see in this world, Kali Yuga, we've been so much suffering and sorrow. Physical suffering with the disease and death and old age, mental suffering with anxieties, depression, substance abuse, drug abuse. And then you see day in and day out people die. And then how does the Vedanta philosophical thinking helps with this kind of a problems when they're too far right into that? It's not in the middle or not in the left. They're too far right into that means they're really addicts there. And then I see die on me every day. And then what to tell to them or how to help them, so much suffering and sorrow. That's my first question. And the second question is similar role of Vedanta. See, looking at the world, I know we had a great time from 1900 BC to 500 AD. That's where the world is looking towards the east actually. China and India are great or something, but now you could see we are a third world country. 70% have no food to eat, unemployment. You see the difference between here and the east and the west. What exactly the Vedanta has done, there is a thought that in our life, pursuing the money and the power is a wrong thing, and the pursuing the knowledge and Vedanta is the right thing. Whereas the West has done, pursuing the money and the power is the first thing, because if you pursue the Lakshmi or money, then automatically power comes in and automatically you gain the knowledge there. Is there a role of Vedanta? Is it individually you are highly enlightened there, but as a whole country or a whole thing, like Swami Vivekananda says, go play football, don't read Vedanta, don't read the books, or go do that, because the food and the shelter and those things are much important than pursuing the knowledge there. And then how does it help in the coping with the Indian problems?
Yes, no. So Swamiji had two approaches while expounding Vedanta in the West and in India. In the West, he tried to expound this as a universal spiritual paradigm, universal spiritual ideal, spiritual humanism that will help you to look upon all religious traditions with equanimity of mind. Coming to India, Swamiji has a very clear prescription for India's problems. That is, a harmonious blending of the best elements of Western culture and India's own spiritual values. This is what Swamiji preached again and again. So, the professionalism, the punctuality, the hard work, scientific temper, innovation, management skills, efficiency, freedom from corruption, civic duty, civic responsibility. All these values, which you find so much in the Greek-Roman tradition, Europe and America. We have to learn all this from Swamiji said again and again. At the same time, this should not lead to any kind of blind imitation, because every culture, every tradition has its own good points and bad points. So when it comes to running a society, eradication of poverty and illiteracy and corruption, all the social evils, we have to learn many things from what so-called American experiment. So in a broader way, we can say the Greco-Roman tradition. But at the same time, we should not blindly imitate the West, because it has its own problems. But on the other hand, the traditional values like family culture, the kinship, the sacredness and sanctity of human relationship, family relationship, and many of the higher spiritual values of India. A country that welcomed the Jewish diaspora 3 times from 4th century BC, 52 AD and 70 AD. The early Christians, the Parsis, the second earliest mosque in India. So it's a glorious tradition of universality, looking upon all religions with equality. At the same time, we had our own problems, such as corruption, then casteism, untouchability, social taboos. The Vedic culture was singularly free from all this, but many of these social evils crept into Indian society, most probably during the Smriti period, maybe from we can't say exactly because India is so diverse in languages, in cultures, and ways. So, but gradually these Smriti traditions and many of the social evils crept into that. So Swamiji says many of these problems can be eradicated by introducing modern education. Swami Vivekananda, one of the earliest great exponents for introducing Western education in India. Western education, not in all its aspects, means spreading literacy among the masses, women folk, bringing the people from the lower levels of economic, social development, higher level. Not the Westernism or drug addiction, drinking, gambling, not that sort of things, but spreading literacy, eradication of poverty, illiteracy, all these problems. For this, we have to make use of Western methods of management, professionalism, and the leadership skills, all these. At the same time, we should keep out the wrong aspects of modernism, Western modernism. So there should be a harmonious blending of the best elements of the Oriental and the Occidental, the Western modern and the traditional culture. That's what Swamiji prescribed for India. And I think it continues to be the best prescription we ever had. One of the greatest contributions of Swami Vivekananda he was the first great teacher who pointed out the evils of Indian social structure. No one today, a politician will never do that. He will lose his votes. But Vivekananda, as a monk, is talking about the need for spreading science and technology, industrialization. All these ideas came from Vivekananda long before any Indian social reformer or politician ever talked about it. So Swamiji gave a very wonderful prescription for many of the problems. No, because we have a want of time. Two of them were trying to discussion. We'll listen to them, then we'll conclude. Please.
Swamiji, you mentioned about spiritual experience, how to keep relationship like prem, maitri, upeksha, etc. So, can you explain the upeksha in this situation?
Oh, yeah.
Where we supposed to?
Yeah. You mean upeksha?
Yeah.
Upeksha means indifference. Indifference means, see, suppose you have to associate with people whose association may make you skeptical, doubtful, may shake your conviction. You are already following a spiritual path. You consider certain values to be sacred, and you are trying to practice them, and it gives you a lot of contentment, peace. But in the workplace or elsewhere, you have to meet people who may tell you, oh, these are all absolute trash, nonsense. You may not, in the beginning, you may not take seriously. If you pay serious attention, then it could do harm to you in your spiritual life. Your conviction will be shaken. He may land you in total mental chaos. But you cannot fight with them because you have to live. You have to live in harmony with people. You cannot move away from them. It's part of, we are living in a give and take world, So you have to live in perfect harmony with them. But you should also mentally guard yourself against the negative influence of negative ideas. So for that, in your mind, you should have a filtering mechanism, an internal filtering mechanism. After all, we all do that. When you go to Trader Joe's, have a great day, you don't think that they are really praying for a great day for you. You take it for granted. It's a natural. In India, an Indian came from a backward Indian village, and he was crossing San Francisco Street, and he was telling, these people, drivers, are so humble, they wait till you pass. So then I said, they are not particularly humble because they are not allowed to cross the street. When you are crossing India, you have to run for your life. Drivers may run over you. But here there are rules and regulations. Otherwise they will be booked and they will have to pay fine. So that's why they are very careful. They stop their car and they let you pass. If they don't, there's nothing. Even total strangers will tell you, how are you today? No, there is nothing special about it. But a stranger from India may think, oh wonderful. The receptionist in markets, shopping markets, they will tell you, have a great day, have a good day, and something like that. In India, nobody says that. You'll be surprised if somebody says that. Here you'll be surprised they don't say that. So the whole point is, those words do not have anything special. Like that, when people tell you negative things, which means if you take seriously, you are gone, you are lost. So what you should do? You should be indifferent, just as this people. That's all. So we should have a very positive internal filtering mechanism to filter out negative ideas and to maybe filter in to absorb positive ideas. That's the only way. So we are practicing indifference everywhere. We are giving an example. So right. Thank you. Okay, right. Yeah.
Swamiji, thank you so much, first of all, from my heart. Secondly, in the morning session, Swamiji, you ended talking about Japam, and I have just one very quick question, which is, what does Japam do to the mind? Does it destroy the bad samskaras?
Yeah.
Does it replant good samskaras? I'm being very mercenary here, I want to go practical.
Yeah. Yes. Even from the grossest angle, Japa will try to help you to avoid unnecessary thought currents. For some time, even if it doesn't produce positive result immediately, it helps you keep your mind disciplined and focused on some positive thought currents and ideas. At a higher level, it does generate new spiritual samskaras, vrittis and vasanas, which gradually will help you to reduce conflicts when you try to meditate, when you try to do japa or anything. And even at the grossest level, you can have conflicts. If you go to a library, if you are waiting for the dentist in the dentist office, there are many magazines there. Not all of them very good ones, but some of them may be not bad. So when you have a choice as to what to read, as what not to read, in which direction does your mind go? That's our true, natural, spontaneous mental condition. So when we do japa, this natural condition of the mind will get a promotion in spiritual life. As the mental purity level increases, our natural actions and thought currents also will get an uplifting effect beside it. So now we should conclude. So thank you. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.